One thing you've noticed for yourself in Kelly Link's short stories and Get in Trouble is a lot of young women and adolescent girls, teenagers, people who are making key choices or facing dilemmas at a moment when they're adolescents, when they're not sure what they want, when finding out what they want is part of the story. Story is not built about getting what they want, but about trying to learn how to even ask themselves what they want. One of the things that makes Link exceptional is the way she mixes the psychological realism, fully rounded, dimensional, emotional characters out of the kind of Chekhov short story tradition, the mainstream short story tradition, with ghosts, fairy tales, vampires, etc. Um, what do the kind of genuine emotional lives of teenage girls and ghost stories, vampires, and zombies have in common? They don't get a lot of respect. They don't get a lot of attention. They're not taken seriously. So um, she's spoken in interviews about the fact that she actually shies away, and you've seen this yourselves as you've read, from trying to make any of the supernatural figures completely obviously symbolic on a one-to-one level. What does that thing symbolize? Why is there a ghost? What's the ghost made of? The ghost is your past. The ghost is your emotional relationship with your mother. The ghost is your grief. No, the ghost is like a thing that comes by that you interact with in different ways depending on your mood and its mood. What is going on in Light with our problematic, lost, drunken, divorcee, or abandoned heroine and her ex-husband from another dimension and her shadow twin who's become real? Those things don't have easy symbolic meanings. So to go back to teenage girls, let's see, before my own occult familiar knocks the camera off again, as he did for one of the videos from my other class. If you look at the new boyfriend is clearly about navigating Emmy's relationship with her with her friends, with her partners, with her own desire. I want to point out a few things that happen in that story. One is it's revealed later in the story, Emmy is in many ways luckier than Ainsley. Emmy is, among other things, prettier than Ainsley. That Emmy of the foursome is probably the pretty one. Not the smartest, not the richest, but the prettiest one. And unlike Ainsley, who gets everything she wants because she's richer, but also because her parents are trying to throw things at her to make up for their guilt for their divorce, where Emmy has a very comforting, reliable pair of parents, extremely understanding and relaxed and chill father who just reliably backs her up through that whole story. Emmy isn't the worst off of these four, but Emmy's Emmy. Her problems are her problems. We have a few things. It's also worth noting that, like, Emmy doesn't long for the ghost boyfriend, the robot ghost boyfriend, because she can't get a real boyfriend. She has broken up. She has dumped her real boyfriend. She has dumped her real boyfriend, who kisses too much and, alas, too wetly, and who still moons after her. And of course, that great last moment is she's come to a place where, like, now that Ellen has picked up Justin on the rebound, and it's like, yeah, it's time to get him back. Now I'm gonna try to get a real boy. I'm gonna get that boyfriend back. On one level, you can summarize the plot, and every way you summarize the plot of one of these stories, you will leave something crucial out. That's one of the reasons these stories work. You need to summarize it several times to get various strands. Here is one summary of the new boyfriend. Emmy practices stealing a toy boyfriend, a fake boyfriend from one of her friends as rehearsal to build up the skills before she actually steals an actual boy from another friend. She's rehearsing, she's training. and then she's just about ready to graduate. That's one version of the story. Another way to tell that story is Emmy is retreating temporarily in adolescence from the challenges of having a real boyfriend with real demands, and even with real sex. To get a toy boyfriend who that isn't even hers, that's only says it loves her because it's programmed to, and yes, she's done the thing with the kind of hair to make the ghost come in and try to possess it. But look back at Mint's patter. It doesn't seem particularly, it's not clear that he really ever knows Amy's name. He's just following through his software. And even Ainsley is starting to feel that she's getting too old for these automated boyfriends, that she keeps them in their coffins. Emmy is a little behind her friends in terms of her sexuality. She is afraid, as teenagers tend to be at some point. Some teenagers are not afraid enough. Some teenagers are rightfully and justifiably hesitant about moving towards that next emotional stage. Um, and she needs to step back from a real boyfriend and work things out with a toy. Look at the description of how Mint kisses her, like it's soft and dry and everything a kiss should be. It's super not sexual. Um, on a third level, this is a parody, a very sly parody, and not the first time Link has parodied the kind of genre of young adult supernatural romance. I'm thinking very specifically of the Twilight franchise, the novels and the movies that came out of them. When we meet the initial, like the vampire and ghost boyfriend that I'm sorry, the vampire and werewolf boyfriend that Ainsley have, who are kind of rivals for her love. That's coming right out of Twilight. It's straight out of Twilight, and Link has kind of subtly skewered and parodied this franchise before in the title story from her collection, Pretty Monsters, just about a young lady who just should not be with a supernatural older person. This is a mockery of that, but it's also an attempt to understand that. Link asks herself seriously, what is it about a teenage girl who would retreat into these fantasies, and what makes it feel safe? What's safer, thinking about a robot boyfriend, a ghost boyfriend, a vampire boyfriend, a werewolf boyfriend, a robot werewolf boyfriend, a robot ghost boyfriend? What is safer about that than a real girlfriend? And she looks with real compassion on this kind of teenager working through that safe space and then really not needing it anymore. In the opening story, The Summer People, we have two different teenage girls who are looking for two different things. To oversimplify again, because every plot summary of these stories oversimplifies, Ophelia, the very deliberately named Ophelia, is from outside and she's looking for connection. She's looking to be rooted. And Fran, who's from here, has been tied down and is looking to somehow get away. They'll look at that last sentence. One of these days she thinks she will go home. The relationship at home, relationship to this place, to whatever's in this place, and the Summer People, who are clearly from outside this place, but also totally characterize this place, who are part of the local magic. That Ophelia senses more than Fran does. Fran's grown up with the magic, and it's a hassle, and it gives her extra chores. The magic gives her extra chores. That's kind of a mantra that can let you understand a lot of what Link stories are like. Yeah, there are these fairy people or whatever, or similar, who live up on the hill, and I do they give me magical gifts, but they also like mess me up and demand that I skip school with voices in my head. And it's a drag, and I got to do housework. It's a real challenge on a real level. To the degree that this is magical realism, it is magical and realistic. You're living real people with complicated lives, and the boring parts coexisting with the supernatural. And the supernatural doesn't make things easy. Supernatural almost never solves a problem in these stories. Also, the supernatural is often not the main problem. The Summer People aren't Fran's problem. Dad, the father's the problem. And the town is the problem. And Fran's lack of prospects, economic, her no chance of going to college, no chance of getting out of here. That's her problem, right? She ends up doing housework for people in Paris. Let me say, flip more, one more story about girls. You know, I would also say, um, I would point out there are a couple others I could work through. Secret Identity is a wonderful story, and I don't have time for in this video. Let me give a shout out to Hero in Valley of the Girls, who actually lives up to her name. The unnamed character, the unnamed narrator of that story, her terrible brother, the character I refer to as the douche with the blank cartouche, is about to let off some biological weapon, and Hero's suicide is actually weirdly is sad, and not just about this, but also is a way of preventing her awful brother from committing a terrible, terrible crime. Um, and the lack of trust between the siblings there is what leads her to not be able to going through with her suicide and to frankly lying to him. Secret Identity is a story about trying to find yourself in the wider world um, before you're ready and having no idea of what your destiny is. Is that character's destiny Paul Zell? I don't think it is Paul Zell, but she's moving towards a place where she's able to keep the conversation going with Paul Zell. Or maybe he could be, the grown up could actually look the teenager in the face.